when people went out and tried to live in community, and they caught the essence of what it means to live in fraternity. The quagmires that are there, that are set up, those who are spiritually oriented, they're going to set up to do those, and the fraternities are going to be built upon people like those who went out in the 60s and 70s, who would go up and say, well, we'll get together because we have some common things in common, but they won't have the sort of larger picture that, like, for example, that OWASP presents. It tunes us into a lot of things that are realities in the soul realm and in the spirit realm. And so, but still, they'll be good-hearted people and well-meaning people, but they will be setting up fraternity. They're going to be the prime movers behind the coming of fraternity. But beyond those, you have the faithist, and I'm particularly the OWASPian faithist, and particularly those who adhere to the faithist discipline. And it doesn't matter if they're OWASPian faithist either, necessarily, if they adhere to the faithist discipline, even though they may not know the name of it or whatever, because it moves them in light, because what OWASP presents is how to move in light, how to move, is that you can build this East house within. How to move so that people can get together and build mansions of light, fraternities of light. Well, the faithist, particularly the OWASPian faithist, are different from the spiritually oriented people, because these people are East-oriented, S-oriented. They can perceive the S realm. They can, with Suis, they perceive it. And it's more to them, it's a reality to them. It's more than just talk about, well, yes, the spirit of war is wrong, or the spirit of happiness is good, or it's good to be chipper. That's all spirit, spirit. But it's not the the S realm kind of perception. Because if we want Jehovah's kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, that means perceiving it as it is in heaven. And actually developing our Suis sense so we can see it in Atmospheria. And beyond that, developing our Ethi sense so we can perceive what's going on in Etheria. Now, not everybody's going to do that, and maybe very few will go for the Ethi level, but certainly toward the Suis level, man is moving toward that. We read about that in OWASP, and we see it in actuality. Well, anyway, because you have these people who are going to, so they're going to be out trying to create conditions that make it better, and try to find out ways out of poverty, and how to deal with this environmental catastrophes that we have out there and problems. And so they want to work on all that. And at the same time, you're also going to have pioneers in the East realm. Those who have their East house clean and in light. And the cleaner they are and the more in light they are, the easier it is for them to move together, to be drawn together. Further away from that, the more difficult it is, the more challenging it becomes to try and find those who are at one with, with the way that you are and all that stuff. Well, at the same time, you're still going to have those of the inorganic first resurrection who are in charge. They're in charge now. They're like these giant, and you've had this vision. They're on the top of the mound. They're giant man snakes. Snakes with a man's head. And they run everything. And that's the established order, system and order that they inherited from the Brotherhood of Hack. That they've done. Like parents, they've neglected their children. Not like parents. Like neglectful parents, they've abused their children. And those children are the organic first resurrection. And beyond that, fraternity, about which they're clueless. And the Father's kingdom on earth, which they think is just, pie in the sky absurdity and madness to even consider something like that. But But these people, they're not going to willfully give up power. They're not going to all of a sudden say, oh yeah, here, here, let me abdicate my high position here up. They're not going to do that. But what's going to happen, though, what's going to happen is that Jehovah is going to make it such that this will happen. That there's going to be more of them that perceive that they're going to get wealthy, or they're going to get more profit. It's going to be more abundance for them, plenty more for them, if they support things that lead to peace and prosperity to the different nations. Rather than destroy a nation, they're going to perceive, hey, we got to build that nation up so they're prosperous, so that we ourselves can benefit from that. We'll profit from that. We'll prosper from that. So that's where they're going to come from. And they're going to say, there's more for us in that than there is in going and destroying a nation. Yes, we can sell weapons and and do stuff like we did in the past and stir up wars and stuff like that. But we don't need to. It's not in our best interest to do so. It's in our best interest to build these up in prosperity. Now they're going to see that. They're going to see that. And they're going to outnumber, eventually, they're going to outnumber those who are deeper in the beast and want to use war. Now, what happened with Fallen Swords Day, thus Fallen Swords Day? Because it was more about than just freeing slavery. Because in slavery, the East House could not be. You cannot have the East House of Light with slavery. That had to go. And Jehovah drew the line there. Said this is the line right here, right there. And it's not we're not having slavery here. And this was but not just here, but everywhere, because this was all about everyone raising up into Cosman. And so prior to that time, and afterwards there was a difference. And what was that difference? Prior to that time, man in his nations used war as a primary negotiating tactic to get what he wanted. That was his first thought. Do you go and take it? How can we do this? To war. That was basically, and if they couldn't, they wanted to try and figure out how they could. But after that, after the pen was proved mightier than the sword, man turned. Okay, man changed to starting to favor negotiation over war. And that's been slowly building up and continuing. And that's going to continue on as well. So all that stuff is coming together. And because now we've been in a long time in the organic first resurrection, and we have essentially a third of the way left to go, we're getting very close to our adulthood in the organic first resurrection. And all this return of the Paradars is going to help all that. And what are these people going to do when they come to the time of 2050? There will be enough of these beforehand who have these east houses built in light and all that, that they will be like the models, so to speak, the inspiration for all of humanity to say, yeah, that's a better way. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. But until we get to that point, that's not going to happen, because man has got to mature sufficiently. You can't, in premature births in heaven, it says no, it's not. They don't want a premature birth. They want a birth that's full and in its time, in its period. And so that was essentially the gist of what happened this morning.
So thank you for sharing your light with us today.
Well, we want all to. Those beyond me.